Let me ask you this. What kind of mask did you wear?
I just use a typical medical mask. I went back and forth about that. We're so precise. We think about the tie we're going to wear. We
Oh
think about
yeah.
the shoes. Are we going to wear a suit or are we going to wear a sport coat and slacks? We spend all that time. And then the night before trial, I was like, dang, I got to think of what mask to put on. And I had a couple different ones. Like we all do at this point in time. You get one, that a caring family member has made, and you get one that you bought from the store, and they all have different designs on them. I probably worried about it too much and decided that pretty much I'm just going to stick with the light blue medical type mask.
And in hindsight, are you happy that you went with that mask?
Yeah, I don't have any regrets about it. I had a couple military and ex-military witnesses, and so when they came into trial, they had the American flags on their mask when they came in to testify, and did not displease me at all. But it wasn't planned ahead of time.
So I ask because on a lot of different listservs, I'm seeing a lot of lawyers debate and clearly stress out about what kind of mask they should wear. And one of the, I think it was on the Trial by Human listserv, people were talking about wearing the clear masks so you can see your mouth.
I saw that. Yeah.
And as a little anecdote on the side, my partner Greg Uniton, we try every case together, and we're great trial partners. He was talking about that. He was thinking he wanted to get the clear mask, and I forbid him. And I said, you will not wear a clear mask during this trial, because I personally find them so gross because they have all the condensate and like the wetness in them. And I just think it looks very bizarre. And most people nowadays, we've all kind of gotten accustomed to masks. I'm always off put the rare times I see someone with one of those clear masks. And I thought that's probably the way the jury's going to feel. They're going to be used to a certain type of mask, so let's stick with what people are used to.
It's interesting you say that. I would have killed for everybody to have clear masks on, quite honestly. Now, I will say this. Once we got through voir dire, the judge did allow whoever was speaking to remove his or her mask. So when I was examining a witness or giving my opening statement, my mask was off. I was far from the jury. I mean, the trade-off was we were going to be set way back to avoid any potential, air spread. But we were able to take our mask off. Likewise, the witness was allowed to remove his or her mask when testifying. And so the court was great. And these security gentlemen in the courtroom were awesome. They had these little covers that they put over the microphone. They were like little like microphone condoms. And they put it on over the whole thing. And each person had their own cover that you put on the microphone. And as soon as someone left either the counsel podium or the witness stand, two of the security guys would come over, they would spray it all down, wipe it all off, and make sure it was desanitized before the next witness or lawyer approached that microphone. So with those precautions, we were allowed to take off the masks. But I have hearing impairment. I rely on hearing aids, but also a lot on lip reading. So anytime that someone was masked, it was a real challenge for me.
If it was already difficult to read jurors, it's that much harder now with the masks on.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed was that about halfway through trial, I realized that it was significant that my client was masked. I hadn't thought through the benefits and possible detrimental effects of that before the trial. But one thing happened during the trial that made me realize I needed to do some things different because my guy was masked. One of his teenage sons was fairly aggressively cross-examined by the defense. Did your dad ever complain about back pain before? Just really, really getting after him pretty good. And then just at the end of that examination, we took a break. So we went into the conference room, and where we were generally comfortable removing our masks, my client and I, my partner, Corey Ford, when we were in the conference room. And he took off his mask, and I could see he was incensed. He was furious. He was just ready to punch a hole in the wall. And, if he'd been unmasked during the trial, the jury would have seen that. They would have known, they would have recognized that maybe the defense had pushed things a little too far, and that this was taking a toll on my client just being there and seeing that. And I realized that they wouldn't have any idea at all. So fortunately, he hadn't yet testified. And when he testified, I made sure I asked him about it. You know, how'd you feel when you were just sitting there 2 hours ago and you saw your son getting cross-examined like that? And you know, he was able to express his emotions at the time really well. He was enough removed from it that he was collected in the way he described it. But he said, you know, I was so mad. He doesn't deserve that. He only came here to tell the truth. I raised him to be a truth teller, and he was here doing that. And for him to be treated like that, it made me so mad that I have to go through this process to get things balanced. And then talk about how he decided at that moment that he was not going to have his daughter come testify because he didn't want to have her exposed to that. It was really powerful testimony, but I would have just let his reaction speak for itself if he hadn't had a mask on.
It's so interesting. I hadn't I hadn't thought about that. I think it also, to me, you know, I think back to different trials I've tried, and that it's a bit of a double-edged sword, though, in the sense that there have certainly been times in case I've tried in the past where I wish my client had a mask on their face,
right.
given like they're talking or saying things, and I'm, you know, trying to say, please don't do that. You know, I mean, because that can backfire. I think in your case, you're right. You would have liked for the jury to see how incensed the dad was at watching his son get improperly cross-examined. But on the other hand, you know, there's going to be those times where, you know, as much as you've coached your client about, you know, the jury is always watching you, they still can't help themselves, and, you know, mouthing words and things like that, that could really give a bad impression about them. So, and it's also interesting that you like to have your client at the table with you, right?
Yeah, I haven't always, but yeah, generally I like to have them there.
Yeah, I usually, so just as an aside, my thinking over time has sort of been, when I first started trying cases, I always had them sitting at the table with me. And then I started to feel, one, it was a distraction, and two, if I could have them sort of placed somewhere else, then there was less of a focus on them. And generally speaking, I always want there to be less of a focus on my client in which manner, my personal preference. So the way our trial set up, our clients were actually able to sit behind the jury for the most part, which to me I think was preferable. But I think everyone, you have to always just do what's comfortable with you, right?
Yeah, and it depends on the client for sure. I mean, there's a lot of smart thinking out there about when not to do it and when to do it. I knew my guy would be able to contain himself generally. He wasn't going to be grabbing my shoulder before every third question to suggest something to me. So I could count on him to be there and behave himself.
And sounds like you really had a rock star client. So, you know, that's a real blessing to go try a case with a client like that.
Great guy. Look, this family was incredible. My job was to not mess up their case.